Ladies and gentlemen, this is David Mirikitani with another episode of Weighing In, brought to you by USA Wrestling, the national governing body for wrestling in the United States, and by Nike Wrestling. Go to athleteps.com for all of your Nike and USA Wrestling branded gear. Joined today by my guy, Grant Turner, back from the NWCA All-Star Meet. Normally, that would be the biggest news of the week, sir, but it was not. And you were sitting on news for a couple weeks as part of your job with APS and Nike. Let's get into it. Gable is back.
Unreal. The fact that, once again, super happy that that's a real thing. I think the sport of wrestling, it's a really, really cool thing for the sport to have, previous Olympic gold medalists, also WWE, prospect, NFL, practice player, or basically went to camp and was played in actual NFL games, is now back at the University of Minnesota and going to be helping them. It's really cool to see, man. It's really cool to see.
Well, we can talk about the backside of it with the rankings. I mean, the short story is Minnesota, moves way up, and a bunch of these other schools slat down because, he jumps in immediately at one in the rankings. I think I looked at it. We'll go through the Matt King's website, but I think they jump like 10 or 11 spots. Another interesting thing about Gable is he was training with John Jones for the Miocic fight. So, and it sounds like that's a possible career for him afterwards. I will not ask you about the details of you knowing everything and when he was coming back. Let's talk about the historical significance of this. There have been very, very few 3-time NCAA champions at the 285-pound weight class. Like Tony Nelson almost did it. Quiz stopped him. Quiz almost did it. Snyder stopped him. I don't know if we're going all the way back to like Carlton Hasselrig, back when I was, about to wrestle or wrestling. He was a Pitt Johnstown guy when did D1, D2, but the list is short of three. I mean, Snyder was a 3-timer, but one of them was at 190. At least one of them was at 197. So
yeah, I mean, like Stephen Neal, I think was a 2-timer. I think maybe Lesnar was a 1 or 2-timer.
Well, Lesnar was only a 1-timer because he's a JUCO guy.
Well, once again, could have been a 1-year JUCO guy, so I don't know his career.
He was path. 2 years. He was.
Okay.
Trust me, that was when I was coaching. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we go back into like Mako, Cole Conrad. How many times did he win it?
I'm going to Google it as we're talking, but it's historical.
Yeah. No, I think also just from the standpoint of like how many, Olympic medalists have come back to collegiate wrestling, I think is another one that's like a very, very, very short list.
That's gotta be a phenomenally short list, right?
Well, I mean, not only like Olympic gold medalists, but like Olympic medalists. I mean, like, I think Fix had a silver in 2021. Like the list has got to be very short on the USA Wrestling side of the business where they come back to wrestle into the collegiate space.
Yes.
I think, once again, I think as we kind of talk about the relevance of having somebody like Gable Steveson, come back to the college game, it's going to boost the ratings of every duel. It's going to boost the ratings of NCAAs. It's going to boost the ratings of the Big Ten championships. And just, it's a monumental shift in popularity when you have somebody that's of his following of different categories, right? So like we just talked about, he was with John Jones at Madison Square Garden, with his camp, right? He was also like hobnobbing it with his whole fight team. Once again, all of the cool things that are happening in the sport of MMA that he got to basically be a part of. Then you got, all of his NFL contacts and all that kind of stuff. WWE, which is a marketing machine. So it's going to be interesting to see the next time that he steps out on the mat. But very excited about him coming back to the NCAA collegiate program.
Yeah, and I'm not here for any of the people criticizing him. Like, people are so weird. They put their lens on things and like, well, I would never try this or I wouldn't do that. Well, you're not good enough. I mean, like, we love wrestling. We loved wrestling when we were wrestling. If somebody said, hey, GT, I think you could be a tight end in the NFL, I think you might try. Like, I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't try. Like, I mean, you and me are both big fans of people that attempt things, even if they don't always succeed, right? Like, you're trying to do things. I'm trying to do things. Like, this whole podcast was trying to do something. So it didn't work out for him in those places. It wasn't like he was a massive failure. I mean, he made a practice squad. That's pretty elite. John Jones says this dude's going to be a world champion. Now, I mean, maybe he's saying that to be nice. He could also just say he was a great training partner, and still be nice.
Yeah, I think the one thing too is, once again, you have, critics and people that, like, once again, they are, I don't know, take a realistic perspective that they think is realistic. But I think the biggest thing is that you have to, don't fault people for trying different things. I think one thing about, I'd probably maybe say something about, the desire for somebody else to go try a different sport, right? I think it's, I don't know. Hey, if you want to become a tight end, or if you want to go play something else, you don't know that guy's goals, or once again, it could become something else, right? Maybe his goals have shifted from his athletic to something else that he wants to be able to do. So I think giving the people the benefit of the doubt on that front is a better way to go than to, like, whatever, criticize somebody's moves. Because you never know. You just never know.
Yeah, 100%. So we're way ahead of ourselves, but the Hodge Trophy becomes interesting, right? Like, I think we all sort of thought, well, if Starace wins 5, it's a lock. And it might be. But Gable, Olympic gold medalist, has already won the Hodge, I think twice, but at least once the year he split it with Spencer. Like, and, his hit list is crazy. Like, you look at the guys he beat, like Mason Paris, who's world medalist, and you go, like, that weight class is still just stupid good with all these guys that were age group world medalists, with, like, Kirk Fleet, Colt Schultz, Gable. There's, like, still 5 or 6 guys in there. I mean, like, Zach Elam was in there a year ago, but just, I don't know, super talented heavyweight weight class. It kind of clears out after next year, which we'll talk about when you get to the All-Star meet. But anyway, very cool ad. You were kind enough to ping me about 6 hours before everything came out and said, start watching social media. So I appreciate that. And very cool ad, Minnesota, on the collab. So, and Gable, obviously. So cool to see that come out, and nice product placement with the Inflix. So well done, sir. The other big off the mat news, I think, was Marcus Blaze, right, making his commitment. And we'll talk a little bit about how the cat got out of the bag ahead of time, but he had it narrowed down to Penn State, Ohio State, Purdue. When you listen to his reasons for Penn State, I think it was Penn State for a while, because the other two really didn't check those boxes. I mean, obviously his brother's at Purdue and he's trained at both those other places, but just in general, the rich get richer. I do think it's interesting. People are like, oh, well, that takes Jax Forrest and Bo Bassett out of it. Like, Penn State's as good as anybody at getting all these guys red shirts year and Olympic red shirt years, and getting everybody in the lineup that's good enough to wrestle. And I think the other thing is this: if you're Penn State and you can get Marcus Blaze, you get him. Like, maybe him and Bo or him and Jax are the best guys. Okay, well, then they're going to all wrestle in the NCAA finals, and you have one of them. Like, You recruit, still you recruit. I recruited, Mark recruited. You get the guy while you can get the guy, especially with the portal, because you don't know that you're going to have him for 4 or 5 years. So Blaze slots in nicely for now. Like, he's got his senior year. He's got a redshirt year. Like 24, 25 is his senior year. 25, 26 is redshirt year. 26, 27, he's a freshman. 27, 28, he has an Olympic redshirt if he wants it. Or he doesn't redshirt any of that stuff and starts right away. Like if he's 33 and Luke holds 25 for a while, and Bartlett's gone after this year. So, spots open up. Maybe he goes 41 right away. So interesting to see. And you were out there at Penn State. Was there any talk about Blaze at all, or primarily focused on the All-Star meet?
Oh, primarily on the All-Star meet, but I also I think that was signing day happened during that week. So you got to see some of these other big recruits. So once again, all of the people that were a part of the All-Star Classic, Arkansas, Little Rock, Illinois, Ohio, West Virginia, South Dakota State, of course, Penn State, all of those guys made, recruiting announcements while we were out there. Right. So, so that was, once again, that was a, big weekend for all those kids to make their announcements. Right. So you can see that other kids, you're kind of seeing where the recruiting leaves are falling. And then I think it was also while we were out there, some of those big announcements, Blaze had just happened. So that was kind of on the topic of whatever. But you can still see where some of the trends are starting, right? You're seeing a lot of the kids that were already kind of committed to maybe Okie State, staying their commitments or making that, finalized thing for, different programs. Right. So, big day for, once again, Penn State wrestling also had a really, really good showing while at the NWCA All-Star Classic. So, and then of course, you get the news that they're getting more really good kids. So,
well, and for people that don't follow high school recruiting, the big story about Blaze was was the only guy really that was huge that hadn't verbaled. Ladarian Lockett signing with Oklahoma State is big, but he'd verbaled. So it only would have been news if on the day of he flipped. So just for people that understand that, we're not in any way reducing any of the other absolute superstars, but no one else. Ludington decommitted, but he didn't sign anywhere else. And Correa had announced he decommitted from Michigan, but he hasn't signed anywhere else. And that was because of Sahakian. So, but I think if you're kind of in the know on those things, you knew those were coming. And a decommit is big news, but a huge superstar committing is gigantic. And the Blaze lost to the world champ in the U20s looks even better now. He lost by a lesser of a margin than Vito did. And I get if somebody beats me by 10 and you by 6, that doesn't mean you're going to beat me because Vito beat Blaze. But it just looks good. So because you don't know how good of a win or a loss things are till you have context. So anyway, let's talk about the NWCA All-Star meet. I think, first of all, the production from everything watching it seemed really good. I was doing the Maryland American duel, so I missed the first couple matches and then flipped over. And shout out to Alex Clemson and Nick Bruschetta, Ethan Laird, Elijah Oliver. Those guys, awesome hospitality over the weekend with those guys. So appreciate them. So I just got a text from Earl Smith. There was Snyder, and before him, no one since Carlton Hasselrig did it. What up, yo? I remembered that. I'm not sure any of the top of my head how many before them. And Snyder was not a three-timer at heavyweight. He was the three-time champ that won a couple of them, or one of them at heavyweight. So anyway.
Look at you dropping some knowledge bombs.
Old school, baby, old school. Got to go back to Carlton Hasselrod back in the day, baby.
Yeah. Great polls. Great polls, by the way.
Yeah. And a guy that went to the NFL. So without ever playing till the pros. So yeah, he was an unbelievable dude. So anyway, All-Star meet. I guess we just go. We'll skip or we'll leave the 84 match for last. What surprised you? What stood out to you? I mean, we won't go through all 10 of the men's matches, but just what were some of your highlights before the 184?
Well, I think one of the things that kind of really, started off the evening was I want to make sure I do a little credit to the women's and the multi-division component of the exhibition bouts. Mo from Wartburg, the Division III national champion, hit a nasty wrist snap. Probably something that
would Vincent Robinson been proud of it?
Oh my goodness gracious. Basically, the Division II and Division III shined early in the night. I thought the women's matches were great. The McBride sisters looked really good. Once again, very, very tough matches for both of them, but both came out on top, which was really cool to see. And once again, I just think that giving that platform along with, the men's Division I ticket is really cool to see. So
yeah,
kudos to my boy Sion Williams and the Flow guys for kind of putting some of that stuff on the front page. But immediately right out the gate, we had Feldman and I can't pronounce his last name very well.
We'll say the Toronto on it.
That match itself was worth the price of admission.
And surprising, right? A little surprising.
Yeah, I think just how well he moved during that, kind of outside reach type thing. Just the way that the match kind of transpired made him look really good. I think Feldman he's really going to be in a good place. It's, start of the year, once again, it's just one match type situation, but kind of a big upset, even though they're two All-Americans. I would have thought more people would have favored, if we were doing statistical work, I think a lot of people would have taken Feldman in that match. But looked really good coming out the gate. Really, if you're watching the match and probably not necessarily the score, Bronigal and Stephen Little, they kind of put on a show. It was kind of roly-poly, scrambles, overtime, some almost takedowns, stuff like that. But once again, great match. Once again, that was just right out the gate, right? So 97 heavyweight, good ways to kind of start off, right? Jory Volk looked really good. Once again, really, really tough matchup between All-Americans there. That was their 7th and 8th place match, I believe, a year ago at the NCAA tournament. So Volk looked really good. And then basically we kind of get into the meat of the card, where you're stuff that you probably had never seen, right? So Lucas Bird, Nasir Bailey. And we had talked about previously that Bird's kind of slept on. That guy's really, really good.
He's a contender. He has to be a contender at that weight class now. You beat Nasir Bailey. It's super close match, could go either way. A lot of these matches, there'll be adjustments. You might not see the identical outcomes, but you win against the number 2 returning, in terms of rankings, you're a contender. And he's good at shutting guys down. So it feels like he can slow Kirkham down a little bit. And he's better in those matches where there's not a gazillion exchanges. At least that's my opinion.
Right. And I think that, you get into these matches where you're kind of, I don't know, kind of a conflict of styles, I would think. Because, Bailey's kind of more this explosive, out from the open flash. And Bird has that ability, but he's more controlled, in his tactics, but it's just fun to see that match go, like once again, we got a showcase. Once again, that's the whole idea of this classic showcase mentality, this nice fight card. So, basically, Bo Bartlett, Mendez, could be a preview of the national finals again, all the way back down to the wire. Those guys are, once again, and we'll get to kind of the headlining match, but very much a tactical battle between the two of them.
Well, those guys have wrestled so many times too, and it's always been one takedown either way. So, yeah.
It's pretty wild to like see that be, I don't know, showcased so early in the year, right? Because we all know that Mendez and Bartlett are like, pound for pound, some of the best guys that we have in the United States, and are really good on the freestyle side of things. So, really cool to see that match. I think we had also talked about like, what is Shane Van Ness going to look like?
Yeah, I think he was the biggest shock of the night to me. Not that he won, but how good he looked.
He looked like better than advertised. Like,
he looks like he's the favorite.
Might be the best I've ever seen him wrestle. Like, I think once again, we all recognize that Ty Waters is also very good.
A dog, as you would say. He's a dog.
Yes, he is. And I think that also the match didn't lend itself to Waters' favor, because like he got caught with like kind of getting down early, and then that kind of changes the match a little bit.
Sure.
But like I was just kind of in the mode of wait and see on Shane Van Ness, because I just didn't know what he was going to look like. And once again, if I need to eat some humble pie or crow or whatever it is, I just didn't know what he was going to come back looking like. And I should have known that like Penn State was going to get that recipe right. And
I don't think you'd eat humble pie. It's not like you picked him to be off the podium, I don't think. I mean, even if you did, it was an injury thing. It's not like no one would have said this dude's going to look like Superman, which is what he looked like. Ty Waters is super legit, and he majored him. And I get he scored early, and then you got to chase points, and credit to Ty Waters for not trying to lose close, right? Like some people do that too. Like he went for it. You lose when the guy knows I have to come to you. I have to chase you down. It makes you even better defensively. Makes your counterattacks better. But yeah, he's super legit.
Yeah. I was just doing a little bit of research as we were just talking on Lucas Bird.
Yeah.
Like when you go back to his national tournament runs, like Lucas Bird lost 3-2 to Dayton Fix in the quarters in 2023, and then goes on the backside and loses to Mendez in ultimate tiebreaker 3-3.
Yeah, that's why he didn't DMP that. He DMP'd that year. Yeah.
Right. And then the year before that, it was the year that Roman Bravo Young beat Fix in the finals. And that year, see now, where did he find it? I had it. Just give me 1 second.
Take your time. He's a complete dog.
Yeah. So Lucas Bird first round ended up getting like, I think it was crazy situation, and got pinned by Ramos, who ended up being pretty dang good for Purdue. Then he wrestles all the way back and loses in the Conci semis to DeSanto, who DeSanto got third.
Yeah.
So like and then he beats Myers from Virginia Tech for fifth.
Yeah, Corbin Myers, yeah.
Who was also a dog from that standpoint, right?
He hasn't lost to anybody he's not supposed to lose to, right?
But it's like we were talking about how razor sharp the team race is, and I think we'll get to that at some point in time here soon. But I think the biggest thing that we're going to get into is like, okay, so like Shane Van Ness looked really good. Bo Bartlett, definitely title contender. You keep going up the line, you go, Kasak beat Keller.
And he might not be their starter.
And might not be their starter, but look, like beat another All-American, and Kasak, once again, held the match, did a good job. Once again, it didn't lend itself to Keller's style, because he's really good on top and like couldn't get a turn, but like did a good job in the third period, but he was just down, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so like Kasich looked really good, right? So then Kundo wrestled in the duel, looked really good, and ended up winning. I think it was like 8-6. Then we go to like, I think it was next was Hunter Garvin and Hall.
Yeah, Hall pinned him, caught him in the scramble.
Great match, crazy scramble, good matchup. Another one, big shout out to West Virginia for having 2 guys in the All-Star Classic.
Right.
But, just really good, fun match to watch. Those guys they came to scrap. So big shout out to Hunter Garvin and Peyton Hall on that. Then we get another showcase where the team race gets, basically legitimized. Levi Haynes is the number 2 guy in the nation right behind Keegan O'Toole at 74 by beating Cade DeVos, and pretty handily.
He looks like he's the co-favorite.
Absolutely. And Levi Haynes, if we think about it, like, he was a national champion, was it 157?
Yeah.
And now he's at 74. He looks a bona fide 74 pounder. Like,
same thing with him and Starachi, right? Like, they don't look like they moved up. They look like, if you didn't know better, you'd be like, oh, they were 74 and 84 last year. Yeah. Penn State's doing something scientific that's correct. Like, when I was with Alex Clemson, he told me about this thing. It's called a DEXA machine, which, like, we just didn't have one of those in junior college, but basically it wasn't in the budget. But that's one of the, it does this body composition, and it breaks down your fat, it breaks down your lean muscle, it breaks down all these different things. It also tells you for sure, like, what weight class you would be, how much muscle you can add before you need to bump up a weight class. And then obviously they're working with really smart people to build up. And, the other trick of this is, like, if you're Kale, you can talk to the strength and conditioning football guy if necessary, if you somehow don't have the data to bulk these guys up. Yeah, so for sure. All right, tell me about 184. Fascinating match, ends up overtime. Starachi gets the win. Felt like a pretty even match. What was being Matt's side? What did it seem like to you?
Well, I think, I don't know if you've ever watched extremely high level. I don't know. I would almost equate this to high level, maybe wide receiver versus cornerback, or one-on-one basketball, or high level intellectual wrestling. But it's it looks boring, but if you watch it, you're like, oh my gosh, he's testing things out. They're moving, they're hitting some fake shots, or trying to see what the other person's going to do, see if they overreact. I think as a fan, I could understand kind of what was transpiring there. Once again, I think that we talked about this. If it was a low scoring affair, it benefited Starachi more than it would benefit Parker.
Yeah.
And Keck Eisen got in on a nice high crotch. I think it was either in the second period or in the I think it was in the second period. And Carter Starachi did such an amazing job of defending that deep shot, and then went right back in on his single in that period. You could start to see maybe that they were all right, now we're going. But I think watching at Matt's side, you could tell that both guys were more tactical than just let's go have fireworks.
Right.
So overtime comes, kind of nice little reshot thing from Carter, pulls him back onto the mat and gets him right on the edge. You can't deny Carter Starachi's gamesmanship and his ability to just raise his level to when he needs it.
Yeah. He's a winner. Even the people that don't like him, he's a winner.
Just flat out. And he doesn't do anything that's that you hypothetically should hate, right? He doesn't take injury time. He doesn't he doesn't do dirty stuff. You know what
he does that people don't like? He doesn't apologize for being great. And people want their heroes to be humble, and he's not humble. That's it. He just, yeah. I thought the winning sequence was interesting to me because Keckheisen, instead of just knee blocking and going back, tried to counter score, and he brought his hips back to Starace. I'm not saying Starace wasn't strong and didn't try to pull him back in, but I think that if he just sprawls, goes to the far ankle, and stretches him, like the grip gets broke and it's neutral. But it was they both tried stuff. And what's crazy is, like, we're seeing improvement in Oklahoma State, and the only reason I bring that up is Plott's like the number 3 guy here. Last year, the gap between Plott and Keckheisen was pretty significant. Plott doesn't see Keckheisen or Carter in the season, so I don't know. The other thing that struck me overall about the meet was how many non-traditional power teams were there, like West Virginia, 2 guys, Little Rock, 2 guys, Illinois, 2 guys, Little Rock and Illinois hitting twice. That was interesting. South Dakota State, Wyoming, only no Iowa guys, no Oklahoma State guys, no Nebraska guys, no Arizona State guys. So, and it's not a compliment or a criticism, it's just an observation. So, really well done by Flo, and cool to see Nike there partnering up on that. So I figured you guys were in on that once you told me you were going. So congratulations on that. Let me pull up this article here. So here are the upsets from week 3. We'll start with the biggest upsets, and then this will lead into the rankings. So, huge one. Sagaris beats Dean Peterson, which is absolutely shocking because I can't even tell you where Sagaris is from. Luke Serber beating Munoz is really significant, 5-0, for a couple of reasons. One, Munoz has had a tough schedule so far, but you kind of figured he would beat Serber after wrestling Buchanan tough. Serber beat Munoz worse than Buchanan did. Also, there was the question in Oklahoma State, was it going to be Serber or was it going to be Cody Merrill, especially after Merrill won the Michigan State Open? This certainly doesn't decide things, but it certainly shows you that Serber's probably back, like healthy. And he'd kind of done a lot of hard things to his body, moved up, moved down, all that kind of stuff to get into the lineup. So good problems for David Taylor. Colton Hawks beat TJ Stewart. So I watched this match Friday night. By the way, GT, Mark and I set the line at, I got 13 points, and the number hit right at 13. The Virginia Tech Mizzou duel was 23-10. So we pushed on the wings. Hawks beat Stewart. He did a little Russian go-behind spin and then caught Stewart on his back and really controlled the match. Trumbull beat Slavikowski. Barraclaw, me, and I was watching that on my phone late night Friday night. Interesting match. Barraclaw 0-0. Then he rides Amin the whole second period and then picks down. Amin cuts him. Amin gets a takedown late and Barraclaw gets out. So it's 3 for Amin on a takedown and then escape riding time. And then 4-4. But Barraclaw wins on the riding time. So interesting there. Van D lost, Whiting lost, Teague Travis lost to Ethan Styles. Ethan Styles looks really good this early in the year. Maddie Singleton beat Turley. I think Maddie Singleton's gotten slept on, GT. Like, he knocked Gabe Arnold off a world team. So he's pretty dang good. Charlie Miller smashed Seabrick 13-4. That's interesting. Van D took another loss. And, I mean, we can kind of – Sam Latona beat Josh Edmond, 1 takedown to none. Yeah, I don't know. We'll kind of hit all these when we get into the rankings. So we can go there now. So we'll start at 25 and just kind of go through what jumped around. Again, mattkings.com. You can set up a free account here. So not a lot of changes. So the big move here, GT, is Vincent Robinson. Okay, so I think Vincent Robinson's their starter. Like, he lost to Camacho in a wrestle-off, but he's just killing dude. You talk about wrist snaps that are otherworldly. This guy's a highlight reel. I don't know if Camacho goes in the portal, I don't know how all that works. Owen Treffin is in the portal, which, again, I don't know if any of us really know the portal rules completely anymore, but that's a thing. I will say this for Mizzou. Certain didn't wrestle. Gage Walker, true freshman, wrestled Ventresca pretty tough. Close match. I mean, he lost, but he looked good. Ventresca's actually finally healthy. But a lot of these guys haven't wrestled a lot. Like Figueroa defaulted out. Provo hasn't wrestled all year. You know, Macron's in a lineup battle. Certain hasn't wrestled all year. And eventually, that's the hard thing about ranking guys, GT. Like, if you take them out of the rankings, it affects the team score dramatically. So, not Ramazan bumps back up, and a couple new guys pop in. Cale Peterson will be interesting to see if he can manage 125, which I think is a fairly significant cut for him. He could be a factor for Iowa. 33, no big changes here. I mean, a couple guys in the, your non-round of 12s on up. Van Die's your big faller, taking a couple losses over the weekend. Cale Hughes looks awfully skinny at 133, GT. Will be interesting to see if it's Whitcraft or Hughes, and then at 41, if it's Hughes or Tegan Jameson, and then theoretically at 49, is it Tegan Jameson or Carter Young? But those guys, and then they have Caleb Fish and Teague Travis at 57. A couple of those dudes are not going to make the lineup. So it'll be interesting to see how that shakes out. 41, no changes really here. Latona bumps up over Edmond. So, they kind of met in the middle. They were 13 and 20, and now they're 15 and 17 the other way. Sort of everything you would guess. The big news here is Zach Redding comes into the rankings at 41, kills Iowa State. That Swiderski's out for the year. Kind of, if they try to get Echemendia back down to 41, try to get Pinheiro down to 49, maybe get Chittiman at 57, trying to figure some things out there because Pinheiro hasn't wrestled all year either. So there's another situation. 49, really no change at all. Jesse Vasquez moves up a little bit. Carter Young moves up a little bit. Willie McDougall takes a loss. 57, no. Joey Blaze moves up. Teague Travis took the loss to Ethan Stiles. I think Ethan Stiles probably needs to be ranked a little bit higher. Wynn's got him the highest. So it'll be interesting to see, but he's going to have a chance to move up. Vinny Zervin had a highlight reel match over the weekend. Shout out to him. 65. So Sammy Sasso's sort of the big one. He moved down, which is interesting. So Wynn doesn't have him ranked at all. And Flo's got him at 3 and Intermat at 11. So that moved his average ranking down. It's just unbelievable. Like, I'm not one of these guys that will go on the air and go, I'm friends with everybody that wrestles. I don't know Sammy Sasso at all. But, man, is it amazing to see this kid came back and is doing the dang thing. And pretty inspirational, right, Grant?
Yeah, I think I got a chance to talk to Coach Jordan when we were at the NWCA All-Star meet, and it's one of those things, like, everybody was just over the moon happy that, he's back. And once again, your body's a weird and beautiful thing. You come back from like a traumatic thing that Sammy Sasso was a part of. You just don't know how his body is going to respond. And what Coach Jordan had told me is that he's getting better every week, right? He's feeling better. Like, he's had, everything about it, lifting, training, walking, running, the whole thing is that you just incremental growth, and you never know, like, when he's fully going to be whatever he thinks is his new 100%. But I'm excited to see, like, just how Sammy continues his journey on his recovery from, basically that kind of a traumatic experience.
You coach and you wrestled, and I think everybody in the world, it's like football, right? The whole thing is we're going to try to go 1-0 each week, and we're going to be a better team in December than we were in September, and the same thing applies to wrestling. But you see plenty of guys that don't get better, right? They're just doing the same stuff they were doing at the beginning of the year. I feel like Sasso could improve as much as anyone because the guy probably didn't even know if he could go live. I mean, it's unbelievable. The other thing is this. I think Barraclaw is a real contender here, Grant. Like, I think he's good enough to go. I think he's certainly good enough to go with Ramirez and Peyton Hall. We'll see about Caliendo and Messenbrink, but I think there's a pretty real chance that he's even better than we thought, which is a testament to him getting a chance to wrestle into the depth of the Penn State room. And with roster caps, you're going to see more and more of this kind of stuff.
Well, I think it also is just a testament to, once again, leaving Penn State and having like that courage to like leave, one of the best collegiate programs in recent history to like, have your opportunity, right?
Yeah.
Because I think one of the things that probably is the coolest part of that story for him is just that he's getting that opportunity. We all probably thought like he could do whatever. Like, it's like, oh yeah, we can always theorize that, like, I don't know, the third string person at Oregon State could be an All-American, or
right.
The third string guy at Iowa could be he could be on the podium. It's like, well, Barraclaw is living example of like, hey, go get your opportunity where you can, especially if you're like up against, I don't know, Kasak, Facundo, Messenbrink, Haynes, Starachi. You can't, like, you could not figure out a way to like get through that lineup, and now he's a top 5 guy.
Yeah,
he's, and once again has a great opportunity to like showcase what he can do for himself, which I'm just super excited for him, or any athlete that gets that opportunity to be able to like find his way to a lineup spot.
I think we're going to see more of it too, right? Like, I think if you're a coach of like a number 16 to 30 type team, you're going to get fallouts from these rosters, right? Like, they just have too many good guys. Like, Terrell Barraclaw might have been the 31st best guy on the team, like, for next year. And like, look where he is. And the teams that like the Penn States of the world are going to have to be really, really judicious on how they pick their 30. And if you're a non-top 10, 15 team, you're going to have to keep an eye on these guys, because if you can actually develop dudes, it's going to be a big win. So Carson Karchla is the other news here. He's at 74. It's been reported Rocco's going to redshirt and then move up to 84. So interesting to see how that goes. 84. Colton Hawks, they did the same thing. GT, we talk about in rankings all the time. TJ was 5, Hawks was 10. Now they're flip-flops 7 and 8. They met in the middle, which is probably what Mark and I would have done. I'm sure Mark would come on next week and tell me why I'm wrong about that. But for now,
I'm sure.
I'll take that as I'm right about it for now. So I also watched Jackson Smith wrestle, and he pinned a guy in a minute, but he looks good at 184, bro. Like, he looks like that. He was super small last year, 97. This looks like the right weight for him. 97, Serber moves up. He is 17, 13, and 11. So Intermat's the only one, or Wynn is the only one that flip-flopped him with Munoz, which is interesting. And I see, this is where it's hard, right? Like, you take one match over sort of body of work. Munoz has been an All-American. Serber wasn't really healthy last year. Serber does have some really good wins. He beat Rocky Elam when Rocky Elam came back off injury. So, I mean, that'll sort itself out. But sometimes when you look at team rankings, you go, who do you think has upside? If Serber beat Munoz, you could certainly make an argument he can beat Novak, Poznansky, Andy Smith, and Bronigal and Glazer. I mean, even though Bronigal went really – and Bronigal was neck and neck with Stephen Little. So it feels like there might be like a massive tier 3 here, right? Like, maybe some combination of Buchanan, Cardenas, Ferrari, Elam are tiers 1 and 2, and then Little down to like Wyatt Volker or even the Stouts, or Christian Carroll is like Christian Carroll at 19. If I had to pick one guy ranked 19 in the country to AA, he'd be my guess. So 285. So Gable. All right. Thank God everybody did the right thing and ranked him number 1. So Feldman drops. below Godali, Slavikowski drops. And again, Owen Treffin is a guy that's going to portal. So, depending on who you're looking at, it'd be interesting to see. But somebody, they have to kind of go through who's good and see who's going to pick him up. Like Heinzelman's going to transfer to Michigan at the semester. But a lot of the really good teams, you look at it, like Minnesota, Penn State, Oklahoma State, Iowa State, North Carolina State, Arizona State, Ohio State, all have their heavyweights. But does a Mizzou go get him? Because this is a guy that's right now is in the blood round. So interesting to see. All right, team scores. I was really interested to see. Look at Minnesota, bro.
Yep.
So if you're just listening, their average score jumped. They are now 5th. They were 16th last week. And they almost doubled their points. So they're at 50.8 on average. So here's another crazy thing, GT. Virginia Tech beat Mizzou, and Mizzou passed them in the rankings. And that's, for people that don't understand that, that's because the upsets that Mizzou had was a bigger point shift than the upsets that Virginia Tech had. So like Latona beat Edmond, but they were both in that 9 to 16 range. So it's like plus or minus 1 point. But TJ Stewart went from 5th back down to 8th, and Colton Hawks went from 10 to 7. And that's a massive jump. So Missouri's now in the top 6. Oklahoma State and Nebraska are basically tied for 3rd. Iowa, has fallen off a little bit. Nelson Brand's losing early in the year. Didn't help. Gabe Arnold had a 5-3 match with the kid from Bellarmine, so it's interesting. We'll see if he's still 184 is still the right weight class for him. South Dakota State, Virginia Tech, Ohio State, Mizzou, Iowa State are all, Michigan, Northern Iowa are all sort of in that same bundle. So, all right, you want to pick a duel, GT?
I can definitely do that. I think on the team side of things, we can clearly see that like the influx of a couple of good people, or like how the rankings shake out, is going to shake up a lot of everything from kind of what the top 10 is going to look like at the end of the year. I think everyone's just so close and tight on that front. A couple of bad losses here, a couple of things here, one guy comes back into it. Holy buckets. Like you're into a whole different stratosphere of like, who's going to bring home a trophy now.
Right.
So, and then other teams that can get hot and have a couple of those matches that we're already seeing where they're knocking off All-Americans, and all of a sudden that guy's in the round of 12 and just doesn't come back, right? That hurts certain people and certain teams that need those points.
I think one of the reasons, you're 100% right. I think one of the reasons why people in doubt pick a Penn State guy is because they wrestled great in March.
Yeah.
Right? Like that Mark, if you look at Mark's team scores, predictions, every Penn State guy, like including Josh Barr, has gotten the benefit of the doubt. Like he's going to be an AA. I'm not saying he's wrong. I mean, we don't know if he's wrong or right. We're not going to know till March. His premise is based on historical results, which is kind of hard to knock, right? Like, some schools really, really perform well. Other schools kind of perform to where they are. And then by definition, if somebody overperforms, somebody else has to underperform. Like if you put up 8 guys, I'll bet you right now, if you pick any weight and took a snapshot of the top 8, not one of those weights will finish in that order.
Right.
I mean, your reaction to how quickly you said right, like, yeah, something's going to happen. Like the seating might be different and they end up on the same side of the bracket, so it can't happen that way. People get injured. People lose a brick match. Like some of these guys are just so even. You're like, you have to see Grant above Mark, but they're really close. If it went the other way, wouldn't be shocked kind of thing. Okay, so if you're watching this, again, Matt Kings, you just go to the duel page, you put in 2 teams and hit compare and they pop up. So what's really cool about this, GT, is the guy in green is favored based on rankings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So kind of makes it really simple to look at. So here's the favorites: Terrakina over Peterson, Frost over Ayala, which we'll get to, Reading over Block. Those first three are Iowa State. Then the next bundle are Iowa: Parco over Echemendia, Teamer over Pinheiro, Caliendo over Gaitan, Nelson Brands over probably Noctamurin, Arnold over Bachman, Buchanan over Carroll, and then Bastida is favored over Keeter. So it's 6-4. Now, if you're Iowa State, you have to hold serve on those four, which is not going to be that easy. Okay. And you need Echemendia to steal one, or Pinheiro to steal one, or Carroll or Bachman. And I would say in my process, the most likely to get a steal is Echemendia. No disrespect to Parco, but Echemendia's placed just about the same he did, just down a weight. And the other ones would be pretty tough. If you're Iowa and you can just win those 6, you win the duel. I don't think you're out of it with Cale Peterson and Terrakina. I don't think you're out of it with Ryder, Block, and Reading. I certainly don't think you're out of it with Ayala and Frost. Ayala kind of beat Frost up growing up from everything I'm told. Probably could call the guys at Seabolt Wrestling Academy and they could tell us. And then Bastida is favored over Keeter, but Keeter's wrestling and Bastida hasn't wrestled all year. So I don't know if we want to pick this whole duel. I mean, I guess we can. We got time. Like, let me get a pen and paper here and see how this works out. You want evens or odds, GT?
I'll take odds.
Okay. All right, 25. Who you got?
I'll take Iowa State. And now, once again, Iowa State has a couple of different guys that they could probably throw out there. Terrakina, Meza, guys that have been in their lineup. I think probably I give the advantage to the Iowa State team at this weight class over Cale Peterson or like Joey Cruz or whoever they would be able to put out there. So I'll give the advantage to Iowa State in that matchup.
Yeah, me too. By the way, the meet's at Iowa, 6:00 Saturday night.
Yep.
Okay. I agree with you. I'm going to take Ayala at 33.
Ooh. It's taking a little Mark approach already.
No, trust me, it's going to swing back. Trust me.
I get it. I am very intrigued to see what's going to happen at 41 between, Block and Reading or Block and Frost or Block and you never know. Like, I don't know if Echemendia can get down to 41, but like this is a crazy duel and weird stuff happens all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll take a nail biter here. I think it'll go in Iowa State's favor.
Okay.
But I think it's going to go down to like a decision. And I think this weight class is like a pure toss-up one.
Yeah.
Where I think it's a huge factor in the how the duel is going to go, because it could go 7-3 Iowa and it could go 6-4 or 5-5. But if Iowa State's going to have an opportunity to knock off Iowa, they need 41. I think it's a linchpin of the duel.
Who'd you pick at 33, Frost or Ayala?
I'm taking Frost.
Okay, and then 41 you got Reading.
Yep.
Okay, and I got Reading also, and I'm taking Echemendia at 49. Here's what I think. I think he's better on his feet.
Yeah.
And I think with the rules now, you don't have to pick down. Like even if it's 0-0 and you pick neutral, and even if Parco picks down, you just got to get 2 stall calls or 1 takedown, and you're fine. So who you got here?
I'm going to take Echemendia in a upset because for all of the reasons that you just said. I think Parco is, he's so tough.
Yeah.
But I just think that Echemendia is going to get one big move or catch like a 6 or 7 pointer, like a big, body lock or something like that, and then hold serve for the rest of the match, or just get one more takedown, and all of a sudden you're at 10 points, right? So I just think that that's how that's going to go.
All right, 57, Pinero Teamer. Along with 49, maybe the two most athletic bouts of the night, I would say. Just crazy scrambles.
I think I'll take Ja'Cory Teamer in the decision. I think Pinero does a really good job of keeping things close, but I think Teamer takes it.
I agree. 57, I'm going to go Caliendo Major.
I would say the exact same thing. Caliendo is just so solid. And I think for the people that haven't seen Connor Uten wrestle, if he does get an opportunity to wrestle, he's a very solid wrestler as well. I think we all have seen MJ. MJ's a little bit more like free and, hits bigger moves and tries different things. I wouldn't be surprised, depending upon how the duel is going, if they throw MJ out there in order to if we're already and he's gonna try to do some things, right? So
I feel like
Caliendo's too tough.
Yeah, here's what I think. If like right now you have this match 4-1 Iowa State going into 65, okay? I have it 3-2 Iowa State. So I think if you're Dresser and you go, we can lose 65, we can't get bonus, then you send out Uten. I think if you're like, no, we got to win this match and MJ's got a better chance of catching him, then that's what you do. Now, I could be completely wrong, but that's on the outside looking in, that's what I see. Okay, 74, you got the odds. You have Nelson by decision, Major.
So I think this one is another one that I'm going to be interested to see who Iowa State puts out there, because it either could be Aiden Riggins or Knackenborn.
Yeah.
And I think based off of I don't know. Once again, I don't know how Nelson and Riggins ever wrestled in the room, but it could be something that there is some, international government secrets between programs that, Riggins has wrestled Brands a whole bunch. Maybe there's a way for that to benefit Iowa State, but I think Nelson Brands inside Carver, I think he pulls out the W against whoever they wrestle. I just think that Nelson's he's got that gamesmanship, I think, enough to pull out a nice win for Iowa at 74.
I agree. 84, I'm going to go Arnold decision.
I'm going to take Gabe as well to win there. I think it's going to be close. Bachman at 84 is a lot different than him at 97. I think he's looked really good when he's been down at 84. But I think it's definitely still a decision for Gabe. But yeah, I think it's a closer match than what people think it will be.
Yeah, and I think like Bachman presents some interesting differences versus like oh God, I'm trying to blank now. Who's the Iowa State kid? Oh, what was the kid's name last year that Gabe beat in the duel, the transfer?
Will Feldkamp.
Yep. So Feldkamp was like a higher level stance, went for a lot of kind of defensive big moves. Like Bachman, just about Arnold's height, just as muscular, is going to hand fight him, and might be harder for Gabe to get to his offense. But I think Gabe's a favorite. All right, 97, you have Buchanan or Carroll?
So this is where I'm going to have probably one of the most outlandish statements of the day.
All right.
Is I think Christian Carroll wins it by decision.
Okay. All right.
The only reason that I'm basically suggesting this is I'm just going to play off of a bedlam situation. Oklahoma State versus OU comes to play for the Iowa State duel. Buchanan wrestling for OU, Christian Carroll wrestling for OSU. I'm just going to take the bedlam position, and I'm going to take Christian Carroll in a tight match, like last second takedown type situation.
If Carroll wants to, this is his coming out party, right? Like if you want to be announced, you go beat Stephen Buchanan and Carver Hawkeye. Right? Like, I mean, if that's your move, right? Okay. Bastida, Keeter, I'm I was all on the Bastida train last year. I'm still on it. I mean, he cost me my fantasy tournament at NCAs, but I just love watching him wrestle. I think it'll be closer because Keeter's full-time wrestling and Bastida's banged up. I just think Younger's like one takedown better.
Yeah.
So, I don't know who you got here.
I'm going to take Younger Bastida by a major.
Ooh. Okay. All right.
The reason why I say that, I think it's based off of the takedown and that Younger is much bigger.
Okay.
Because I think Cuter takes some bad shots or maybe gets kind of a little bit more heavy, or like that Younger's heavier than him. So I think that Younger gets maybe a couple of easy takedowns off of maybe some poor shots or snap down go behinds or something. Even though Ben Cuter, world champion, like I just think that Younger, in the way that the folk style rules are set up, I think Younger can get enough takedowns in order to get the major.
Yeah. But here's where we agree. We agree at 25-41. We both picked the upset at 49. Yep. We agree at 57. We agree 65. We both agree major. 74-84. Where we're different is 33 and 97. And we basically agree at heavyweight. Like major, so it's three of them. Two matches that are different. And it's 33 and 97. And you have it 19-13 Iowa State. I have it 19-12 Iowa, which means it'll probably be 16-15 somebody, maybe 15-16, maybe 15-15. By the way, unfortunately, I know this criteria in high school. In college, it's total points if it's 5-5 and everybody's got decisions. So it'll be interesting to see. It's going to be a fascinating match. Are you going?
Yep, I'll be heading over there, I think, on Saturday or maybe a day early. Not sure exactly yet, but I think the biggest thing that people need to realize about the Iowa State duel is that like every year you come away from that duel and you're like, especially now that Iowa State is a little bit more relevant in the team race, and then also as much as Iowa has put into the transfers, getting to see all those guys wrestle inside Carver. This is a very historic duel when it comes to the context of collegiate wrestling. And there's tons of other rivalries and there's tons of other things that are on the map when it comes to these type of things. But the Cyhawk, the Iowa State duel is something that is very much like, if it's on your bucket list, like it's a good one to go see in person, especially when it's inside Carver.
It was electric last year at Hilton, so yeah, I'm going up Saturday. The meet's Saturday at 6. I'm going to get on the road by like 10. If it works on your schedule, maybe we can grab some wings at 3 or 4 and then staying over and come back on Sunday. So excited about that. Mark, if you're watching this, send us your picks. Okay. So we'll see how we did. I'll save this for next week. So just to make sure I got you right here, GT, I got you win Iowa State winning 25, 33, 41, 49. Iowa winning 57, 65, 74, 84 with the Caliendo major. And then Iowa State winning 97 and heavy. So it would be very interesting because it would be 12-0, then 13-12, then 15-13, and we come down to heavyweight. So, yeah. So, yeah, I have it. It would be 3-3, 9-3, 10-9, and then it kind of runs away a little bit. I got Iowa winning 74, 84, 97. So, for the sake of being a fan, I hope I'm wrong about something and it's super team-wise close. So, I'm waiting to get my media pass approved. Hopefully, we turned it in a couple weeks ago. Hopefully, we get approved. So, all right, for Grant, who's the best in the biz, Mark, who's the other best in the biz, and your humble servant, David, thank you guys for watching and listening. We'll see y'all next week.